everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast, where we explore the intersection of AI, enterprise cybersecurity, and data architecture. As mid-sized companies and growing ventures accelerate their digital strategies, the real friction isn't adopting AI tools, it's maintaining complete visibility, trust, and control over what automated systems access inside your corporate network. Our guest today is J.Paul Haynes, the CEO of Toronto-based Cinchy and a respected 35-year cybersecurity veteran. Having previously built eSentire into a leading authority in AI-powered managed detection and response, Jay is a professional engineer who serves on the board of Technation and co-chaired Canada's G7 T7 cybersecurity working group. At Cinchy, he leads the enterprise launch of PeriMine, an AI action governance platform that is engineered to help organizations connect, govern, and monitor AI actions across enterprise data. So let's jump right into the conversation and welcome Jay. Jay, it's an absolute pleasure having you on the show this afternoon. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm great and happy to be here and going through my long list of stuff. I guess as you get older, those lists get longer. It's almost TLDR, but anyways, I'm happy to be here and hopefully I can share some insights for the listeners.
Absolutely. We're very excited as well. And on that note, we'd love to open a discussion by understanding the blind spot of rapid AI adoption and the data problem. Because, Jay, most executives enthusiastically, encourage their employees to experiment with tools like Copilot or ChatGPT, but very few can clearly explain what corporate data those tools are interacting with or what decisions they're influencing. Tell us, why is data visibility the key challenge in AI adoption?
It's actually the question, and the success of your AI implementation actually goes back prior to generative AI, like machine learning kind of era, but it's more true now. The better organized your data is, the better results, and it's as simple as that. And it's really a hot mess if you look inside most corporations, because you will find things like. On average, a colleague of mine who runs a DSPM company, that's the new acronym for data loss protection. It's sort of a next gen version of that, would tell you that there are 6 versions on average, or 6.5 versions on average of data, and or maybe documents, and data is 5. There's 5 versions of it, and what happens is, as particularly in the last maybe think of the last 10 years, as data analytics has become so important in business, understand what you're doing. People are creating data lakes and data warehouses and pulling data out of systems, and they're sometimes having to blend that data with other data sets, and in that whole process, they have modified it, and that version of data may not be exactly the same as a custodial system, like the system of record. And so there's a discrepancy, there's drift from the system of record and replicas of the data throughout the organization. Now, this may not matter for some AI applications, and it might make a huge impact for other AI applications. So you have to know where your data is. You have to know which version you can live with. You have to know which process you want to use AI to assist in or automate, and what the consequences of it not being the perfect exact version of the data. And this requires a lot of pre-work. So companies that have gone through a DLP project, you would find some of the larger enterprises are more mature here. They're actually better equipped to run deep into AI that's relying on their data. And the data can be things in databases, the obvious, your ERP, CRM, your legacy systems or your proprietary systems, as well as there's so much important data that now lives inside of documents and spreadsheets and PowerPoints. There is a lot of material in there that it's a lot of words, and this is where we get some of the biggest impact with generative AI. So it's a fundamental data issue. Back to your initial question as well, a lot of experimentation and pilots are going on, and to take those to production requires the executives to trust that data can be managed, and that data can be decisions that are made can be reproduced, fully traceable. When decisions hit certain thresholds, that a human is involved in approving it, the human in the loop. And we see a lot of stalled projects. They're not failed projects; they're stalled because they don't have the apparatus or the harness around logging all of this data and putting in the sort of enforcing the company policies at runtime, so that you don't have agents at escalated privileges accessing databases to give answers to staff. Like, all those sorts of things have to be considered and brought into scope.
Mhm. Well, that was a very detailed overview and a great perspective that provides a crucial reality check for modern executive leadership. And you're right, fixing, your underlying data architecture first really ensures that AI tools act as on trustworthy information rather than multiplying unseen operational risks. Now, Jay, let's transition into business strategy and evaluate how small and mid-sized businesses can move from casual experimentation to a real AI roadmap. Tell us, how can SMBs turn AI experiments into real strategies?
Yeah, so it's interesting here. We've seen many companies run into their most complex problems and try to throw AI at it. There's a lot of FOMO if I don't do this, my company is going to be out of business. If I don't do this, we're going to lose our competitive advantage. Like, all of those discussions. So these are sort of the directives. I'm sort of lumping them all together. Executives are encouraging the staff and managers to adopt AI and do the experimentation, figure out where the opportunities are. But that has quickly run away. And, there's different levels. Like, there's the chat bot, there's the co-working assistant, there's the agentic processes, and then there's the autonomous solutions. It's sort of a progression of risk and reward. And so I think everyone knows, like, if you fast forward 5 years, the entire work world as we know it's going to be different. The journey on how you go from here to there is really what will depend whether you become another statistic, the most recent one was Hugging Face with OpenAI. The so-called leaders of the industry are having bad things happen, and if they can't control it, then that gives the leaders of our small businesses cause for hitting the pause button. So I think we have to look at some of the best practices, and the first principles are: start with easy projects. Start with and this is actually, I think Anthropic has a 14-minute video that says their recommended approach. Take workflows that have deterministic outcomes, use small language models for those, and only for the ones that have sort of non-deterministic outcomes, maybe you bring an LLM in there, and start small and get success with those, and then move from there, versus running right into the most complex problem, which has the most data access and, of course, all the exposure. So it's understand your business. Like, these are kind of boring things. Where is the data stored? How many versions of it do I have? What is the workflows that run my business? Because nobody thinks about that when you got like human kind of workflows. And now we're going to take some process and we're going to AIify it, for lack of a better term. So we have to be able to identify the candidates and what the data is that's going to drive it. And so it's an inventorying exercise, and it's not glamorous, but it has to be done, because you can't manage what you can't measure. I think that was a Drucker. You cannot manage your AI if you don't have a good handle on where you need to monitor it, where, if you're going to trace a process, what are all the data sets that it touches. And basically all of the processes, the workflows have to be decomposed so that you can reconstruct them if there's an incident, if there's a regulatory inquiry, because these will happen. We will have regulation of sorts in this realm, like we already do in Europe.
Now that offers a remarkably practical framework for mid-market business growth. Establishing clear boundaries early, it really allows teams to capture major AI efficiency gains without really introducing layers of slow corporate bureaucracy. Now, Jay, let's look closely at enterprise governance and examine why trust and visibility are becoming far more valuable than raw automation speed. Tell us, how does AI governance build trust and control?
That's a great question. In fact, it's very near and dear to my heart here. At Cinchy, our main mission is to allow business leaders to trust in their AI environment. It's as simple as that. But how do we do trust? How do we give them trust? Now, trust and compliance and governance are all kind of in the same bucket. So the proxy for trust is a governance framework where leaders of the business have identified the risks, They have mitigating controls for the risks, and they're constantly monitored. And if we do that regularly, and leaders see risk reports all the time, that's one of the boards and executive meetings are looking at these. So that is the proxy for trust, because trust is more of a feeling. So how do you make it a structured document? Well, you have all these things you monitor. You have exceptions. You show that the exception was identified and resolved, and all of the sort of, in cybersecurity, we'd say mitigating controls. It's the same thing. The difference with AI is that it's a multidimensional problem. It's far more complex than, say, managing credential access in cybersecurity. So you have systems that have all of those elements, plus you have them connecting and making decisions, and then spawning other processes that could further make decisions. So to get trust over that, you basically have to have guardrails built. The guardrails can come in the form of scope limits, limiting just specific data sources that can be accessed, and enforcing policy when LLMs are connecting to data sources at runtime. And that's a very tricky thing to do. But all of those together, measured and reported on, can give the executives trust. So that's what our mission is as a business, is to help them build trust. And that trust also becomes very important, because you're going to have, if it's not already happening now, you're going to have counterparties looking for attestations and certifications. Like ISO 42001 is a certification a software company will need to have if they have AI embedded in their so just like SOC 2 is for, is part of Sarbanes-Oxley in the financial world. You're going to see that become like a hunting license. So your business can't work with this one if you're using AI and you don't have some sort of measure of trust in the form of a 42000 certification. And then the other version of that, the regulator, like if you're operating in the EU, you need to comply with their regulation, and you're going to have artifacts in your governance program from all the monitoring that can evidence that they have trust that you're doing all the things properly. So trust is a very key thing. I think President Reagan said, trust but verify. This is back in the 70s, talking about, Cold War and nuclear inspections, but it's very much the same idea. We trust that you're doing it right, but we want to see regular verification, and the verification comes from an apparatus to detect and log all of the relevant risk areas and escalate them as necessary.
Right. And those governance insights, Jay, they offer a masterclass in risk management for the modern enterprise. And you're right. I mean, building visibility and control directly into our data layer, it guarantees that automated actions remain fully accountable for our leadership team. Now let's turn our focus towards regulatory compliance and how organizations navigate risk in AI deployments. Tell us, how can businesses adopt AI while maintaining compliance?
Well, I think, as much as everyone wants to rush into this because of FOMO, like we were talking about earlier, you have to slow down a little bit. What is the Navy SEALs would say, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. It's one of those. We can't put things into production that aren't at a minimum grade of monitoring and risk identification, escalation, for example. The regulators, like there's NIST is a U.S. standard. They've got a risk management framework for AI, ISO 42001, and then EU, which has also some consumer elements in it. There are other regulations, though. It's quite interesting. Like, people worrying about AI regulations only. It's not just AI. Like, if you're in banking in the U.S., you have the FFIEC, which regulates everything affecting customers in the financial industry, and all of this stuff is in scope of that. So when, like, if you think of cybersecurity controls, and now you've got AI off to the side, it actually requires all the same diligence and cybersecurity controls. In fact, I would submit that it's now a new permanent threat surface that has to be monitored, like from a cybersecurity perspective. And there's all these other regulations that cover that, but you can't minimize that importance, because it'll get you. And we're seeing evidence now of basically the attack methods that we observed, say a couple years ago and before, are now the same methods are being run autonomously with much higher velocity. And that's the gap that the security monitoring firms have to have, is how can we detect faster than they can complete their objectives? And so all of that is in scope for your AI rollout. So you've got regulations that affect cybersecurity, and then you have the AI specific regulations, and creating, as I said earlier, a proper monitoring framework, and a sort of a principled approach to risk. Because what is interesting about AI is your risk is, it's your own adventure. I think it is very unique to each company, and you have to identify, like you have to look at what are the things, if they go sideways, are going to cause me to be a headline or worse. And in every implementation, every project, every candidate for getting some of the benefits of AI, which is, higher caliber work product. Sometimes there's, automation that can reduce repetitive human tasks. But those areas are, enticing. There's a return on investment there, either through more customers or customer retention or less operating costs. But the trade for that is, how much do I have to put around this so I can manage the risk and be able to prove it to the various regulatory authorities in both AI context as well as security. And everybody's got a different set of regulators. Healthcare is its own, as an example.
Right. No, that provides a brilliant model for maintaining organizational agility under strict security controls and embedding automated governance into data connections that really protects compliance while allowing product teams to innovate at maximum speed at the end of the day. So overall, it's a great way to, balance compliance without slowing down the team. So thank you for sharing the insights there, Jay. Now let's explore and draw on your 35 years of engineering experience and cybersecurity leadership for an immediate practical takeaway for our audience. Jay, what is the first step to prepare for an AI future?
Well, it's going to happen, so get prepared for that. Education is actually probably not talked about enough. We see, even to this day, cybersecurity education, like don't click on this link, still is effective risk mitigation. So I think that one of the things that needs to be the equivalent of that in AI is to ensure your staff all have a working knowledge of it. I mean, many are using, if they use Google and Gemini, they're already there. They got Copilot in their Microsoft suite. So everybody's got a taste of it. But, click down a layer and show them what it does, where it's accessing data, where things that you may be asking it to do are potentially offside. So just basic training like that. When you're running, that's today, get everybody using chat and co-work to some extent. Some interesting stats. There was a study published by Andreessen Horowitz about 3 months ago that showed that the full vended spend of AI in production is $3 billion. 80% of that is code generation. And so AI is great at generating code. It's its best use case, I would say, because code itself isn't regulated. What the code does is regulated, but the code itself isn't regulated. So keep doing that and take advantage of that. You will get material benefit there in your business with code generation. Then you get to the next sector is legal. They were sort of first using this, some healthcare and contact center. At the bottom of the list is finance at 80 million, which is surprising because usually finance is always doing this first. But they have these challenges around how do I operate it and stay between the guardrails. So the trust issue for them is very evident based on market adoption. So you've got to sort of figure out what, like in their case, everything is risk. There's other pieces, like in legal, if you're getting documents drafted, that's a huge advantage, and a human can go through and fine tune it, and so they can take the risk out of that. But in finance, if it's making decisions, they can't get themselves comfortable. So you've got this basically awareness level that you've got to elevate the team on. The experimentation in those categories I mentioned. And then when you are starting to deploy agents and agentic systems where you've built a very specific workflow that does things to the data, sometimes humans are in the loop and sometimes they're autonomous, you need to get very deliberate about creating an operational framework for managing this in production. What I mean by that is, what are the monitoring points? What is uptime what it targets, RPO, RTO, what is your SLAs, what is your model drift, how do you measure health, and what's my business continuity plan if the AI goes offline? Now, that wasn't even a thing until June, when there was that government order that took Mythos and Fable 5 off unavailable. So if you had production systems based on those, and that was an extended outage, you would be scrambling to get an alternate model. So the whole idea of like business continuity planning and having alternates, all of these things come into scope when you start running major workloads, especially if they're customer facing, and you're altering headcount based on those workloads. Those all come into scope for agentic solutions.
I would say that's a great framework. It's a very extraordinarily clear one for an immediate impact because, auditing what AI tools are active across your business today,
Yeah.
it gives us a baseline that is needed to protect our data while accelerating innovation. But thank you for sharing the practical actions, Jay. As we wrap up, just one piece of advice in terms of what will help organizations succeed in an AI-driven economy.
It's inevitable, so you got to embrace it. And so if you haven't started experimenting, you haven't got your team in any training, it's going to be, everyone will get there. Those that get there first, there may be a bit of a land grab. You might shift customers around. So do you want to be the one, defending or on the offense? I guess and it's an investment. It is not, there is no free lunch with AI. You got to make the investment. The returns will come later. Some of the returns, it's just the rules of engagement in that sector, and other ones are directly measurable. But I think it's, we're well past the should I do this or not stage. So get going if you're not already.
Right. No, that is a spectacular final reminder that sustainable enterprise growth relies on trusted data, proactive governance, and leading with radical visibility. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Jay, and for sharing such great insights. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks for having me.
And listeners, that wraps up our conversation with Jay. He laid out a clear blueprint for moving past chaotic AI experimentation, fixing fundamental data connectivity gaps, and leveraging AI action governance to build a resilient, future-ready organization. Thanks for tuning into the podcast. Please discover how we're supporting the ecosystem by visiting smefoundation.ca. And before we leave, a special shout out to UPS and ADP for their support. Please stay focused, keep innovating, and we'll catch you on next episode.